Welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard. I'm your host, Mehmet Fatih Akser. Today, I want to talk about one of the most important responsibilities a coach will ever have. It is a responsibility that shapes every practice, every game, every relationship, and ultimately every championship your program will ever compete for. It's recruiting. Now, when most people hear the word recruiting, they immediately think about talent. They think about scoring averages or athleticism of the player, the vertical jumps or shooting percentages or rankings or highlight videos. Those things, give and take, yeah, it might matter, but I'm not going to pretend they don't. But if you're coaching at the university level, talent is important. You can't ignore it. But after more than 20 years of coaching, I have become convinced of something else. The best programs are not built by recruiting the most talented players. They are built by recruiting the right people. And there's a big difference. Every coach has heard stories about increasingly gifted athletes who never reach their potential. And you have probably coached one yourself. Players who could score 30 points one night but divided the locker room the next. Players who looked phenomenal on film but become impossible to coach once they join the team. And at the same time, we have all coached athletes who may not be the most naturally gifted, but every single day they made the team better. They practiced harder. They encouraged others. They accepted coaching. They cared more about winning than about themselves. And those players often become captains and leaders and eventually successful alumni who continue supporting the program long after graduation. And that's why recruiting is much more than selecting athletes. Recruiting is choosing the future of your culture. Every scholarship you offer, every commitment you accept, and every player you bring into your program changes the environment you are building. Sometimes they strengthen it, sometimes they slowly weaken it, and the decision is rarely about one season. It's about the next 4 years. So today, I don't want to teach you how to evaluate a jump shot or analyze a game film. There are countless coaching clinics that can do that. Instead, I want to challenge you the way you think about recruiting altogether. Because I believe great recruiters don't simply ask, can this player help us win? They ask something much deeper. Can this person help us become who we want to be? That question changes everything, right? One of the biggest misconceptions in coaching is believing that recruiting begins when you make your first phone call. Well, it doesn't. Recruiting begins long before you ever speak to a prospective student athlete. In fact, recruiting begins with your reputation. Think about that for a moment. Before a recruit visits your campus, before they attend your practice, before they meet your players, they have already heard stories about your program. They have spoken with their high school coach. They have talked to former players. Their parents have searched your university online. They have looked at your social media. They have watched how your team celebrate wins and responds to losses. Whether you realize it or not, your program is recruiting every single day. Current players recruit, former players recruit, assistant coaches recruit, parents recruit, even the way your team treats officials and athletic therapists and custodians and volunteers tells people something about who you are. The strongest recruiting tool isn't your facilities. It isn't your budget. It isn't even your winning record. It's your reputation. And ask yourself this question. If I called 10 high school coaches today and asked them to describe my program in one sentence, what would they say? Would they describe a program that develops young people? Would they say your athletes graduate? Would they tell me your players become better leaders? Would they trust you with one of their own athletes? Because that's what recruiting really is. Well, it's trust. Research consistently shows that while athletic performance is important, coaches also place tremendous value on qualities like coachability, work ethic, attitude, and character when evaluating recruits. The most successful programs don't separate talent from character. They evaluate both together because they understand that one without the other rarely produces long-term success. And that's why I believe one of the biggest mistakes coaches make is recruiting players instead of recruiting people. Notice the difference? A player is measured by stats. A person is measured by values. A player can score points. A person can change a culture. Because character determines how you win them. When I evaluate a recruit, I'm certainly interested in basketball ability. Like, can they shoot? Can they defend? Can they make decisions under pressure? Those questions matter. But they are no longer my first questions. Instead, I find myself asking different ones. Are they coachable? Can they handle constructive criticism without becoming defensive? Do they take responsibility for mistakes? Do they encourage teammates when things aren't going well? Do they celebrate other people's success? How do they respond when they don't get what they want? Because university basketball isn't just about ability. It's about adaptation. Every recruit enters an environment where they have gone from being one of the best players on their previous team to competing with athletes who were also stars in high school. Some embrace that challenge, others struggle with it. The athletes who succeed aren't always the most talented. They are often the ones who are willing to learn. Coachability is one of the greatest competitive advantages any athlete can possess. Talent may open the door, coachability determines how far they walk through it. One of my favorite saying is this: potential isn't what a player can do today. Potential is how much they are willing to improve tomorrow. And that's the kind of player I want in my program, because they're perfect, but because they're committed to becoming better. And that brings me to another lesson I have learned over the years. Highlight videos tell you almost nothing about who someone is. Every highlight video is designed to impress you, right? It shows the made shots and the spectacular passes and the blocks and the dunks and celebrations. What it doesn't show you is far more important, though. It doesn't show you how they react after missing 5 shots in a row. It doesn't show you what happens when they are asked to come off the bench. It doesn't show how they treat a teammate who's struggling. And it doesn't show how they respond after a difficult conversation with their coach. It doesn't show whether they arrive early or late. And it doesn't show what kind of teammate they are when nobody's watching. And those moments reveal character. And character is much harder to fake than talent. One of the most valuable lessons I have learned is that you don't truly evaluate people when everything is going well. You evaluate them when things become difficult. Because pressure doesn't create character, pressure reveals it. I want to leave you with one thought that has become increasingly important to me throughout my coaching career. Don't recruit for next weekend. Recruit for graduation day, please. When we recruit athletes, it's easy to become consumed by immediate needs. Maybe you need another shooter. Maybe you're looking for size in the post. Maybe your point guard is graduating and you need someone to fill that position right away. Well, those are legitimate needs, but they shouldn't become your only focus. The best recruiters think much further ahead. Imagine your recruit walking across the graduation stage 4 years from now. Who do you hope that person has become? Do you picture someone who simply played basketball? Or do you picture someone who graduated with a degree, grew as a leader, represented your university with integrity, and left your program better than they found it? Because one day, basketball will end for every athlete. The question is, what remains after the final game? Great university coaches understand that recruiting isn't simply about building a roster. It's about developing future teachers, business leaders, coaches, parents, doctors, pastors, entrepreneurs, and community leaders. The impact of a university program extends far beyond the basketball court. That perspective changes how you recruit. Instead of asking, can this player help us next season? You begin asking, can this person become someone our university will always be proud to call an alumni? That's a much bigger question there, and I believe it is the right one. Another lesson I have learned is that recruiting is never a one-way evaluation. As coaches, we spend so much time evaluating recruits that we sometimes forget they're evaluating us just as carefully. They're asking questions too. Can I trust this coach? Will this coaching staff genuinely care about me? Will they develop me as a player? Will they support me academically? Will I enjoy being part of this team? Will I become a better person here? Research on college choice consistently shows that relationships with coaches, the culture of the program, and the overall university environment play a major role in where student athletes decide to commit. Facilities matter, scholarships matter, winning matters, but people matter even more. And that's why authenticity is so important during the recruiting process. Don't promise playing time you can't guarantee. Don't pretend your program is something it isn't. Don't recruit athletes with unrealistic expectations just to secure a commitment. Eventually, reality always catches up. Trust is much harder to rebuild than it is to establish honesty from the beginning. The most successful programs don't attract everyone. They attract the right people. Sometimes the best recruiting decision you will ever make is saying no. That's the difficult because every coach wants talent. Every coach wants athletes who can help the team compete. But not every talented athlete belongs in every program because culture is fragile. It takes years to build. It can begin to change in a matter of weeks. One player who refuses to be coach can influence an entire locker room. One athlete who places personal success above the team can slowly change what everyone else believes is acceptable. On the other hand, one exceptional leader can completely transform the program. Or one athlete who competes every day, treats people with respect, accepts accountability, and serves their teammate, raises the standard for everyone around them. Those players are invaluable. You can't always measure their impact with stats, but you see it every single day. You see it in practice intensity. You see it in communication. You see it in leadership. You see it in trust. You see it in the consistency of your culture. As coaches, we often talk about finding difference makers. Maybe we have been looking at the wrong place, because different makers aren't always the athletes scoring 20 points a game. Sometimes they are the players encouraging a struggling teammate after practice. Sometimes they are the first to arrive and the last to leave. Sometimes they are the ones willing to do the unnoticed jobs because they understand that winning is built on sacrifice. Those are the people who build programs. Those are the recruits worth investing in. As we close today's episode, I would like to leave you with one final thought. Years from now, your leading scorers' stats may be forgotten. Some championship banners may eventually fade. Records will be broken. And awards will be replaced. But the people you choose to bring into your program will leave a legacy that lasts much longer than any scoreboard ever could. They will influence future players. They will shape your team's traditions. They will become ambassadors for your university. And perhaps, most importantly, they will influence the lives of others long after they have left your gym. And that's why Recruiting is one of the greatest leadership responsibilities a coach has. You're not simply selecting athletes, you're selecting future teammates, future leaders, future graduates, and future representatives of everything your program stands for. So the next time you watch a recruit play, don't ask yourself only one question. Don't just ask, can this player help us win? Ask something far more important. Like, for example, will this person make our program better? Because winning games is important, yes, but winning championships is memorable, okay. But building a program filled with people of character, humility, resilience, and purpose, that's what creates a legacy. And at the end of the day, that's what coaching has always been about. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Beyond the Scoreboard. Remember, great coaches don't just recruit talent, they recruit people who make everyone around them better. I'll see you next time.